Hi everyone, Scott here again. In this video, I'm going to be walking through Activity 6-6, titled Locating Objects with Active Directory Users and Computers. This is from the MCSA Guide to Installing and Configuring Microsoft Windows Server 2012 R2. In my edition of the book, this activity begins on page 238. So a quick background about this activity. We're going to be using our Active Directory users and computers to locate a specific object, whether that's a specific user or a specific computer or a printer. We'll take a look at some of those options as to what you can find. And I'm going to go a little bit further, I think, than the activity goes. And I'll explain that when we get to it. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into it, and we'll take a look at finding a user. So you right-click on the domain controller, or the domain here on the left, and select Find. Pretty straightforward so far. So the objects that you can find are broken down into categories here. So you have users, contacts, and groups. A separate group or a separate option is computers or printers, shared folders, whatever the case may be. So to start, we're going to look for a specific user. I have a test user 1 somewhere in my Active Directory. Maybe I don't remember where that user exactly falls in my domain. So I can use this to go and find that user and open their properties. So here you can control what groups they're a member of. You can control some of the basic settings for the account. You can come in and set up an email address. You can put details as to who this user is or what this account is used for, if it's a generic login or whatever the case may be. But one thing that you can't really see yet is where in the domain this user object is located. In a small domain, it'll usually be pretty simple to go and find somebody. I can come down here and find there's my test user. But if I have a large domain with a lot of users, a lot of computers, a lot of objects, I may need to be able to find exactly where somebody is when it's a little more complicated than this. So to do that, we come up to our view and we select Advanced Features, and that'll put a check mark next to it. So we want that enabled, and then we'll do the same thing. Right click on the domain, select Find, type in the user or computer name, have it find now, and then when we double click or right click and select Properties on that object, you see we have an extra row, so we have a lot more options now, and we want to go to Object. And this will show us exactly where inside this domain, which OU this object sits. So I can take a look and I can see inside of this domain, underneath the OU, test OU1, and there's the user object. So if you ever need to track down exactly where an object is, whether it's a computer or a user or a printer, you can go this route. So this is a fairly short video. I'm going to go ahead and show one more thing. In my example so far, I've typed out the full username, which was testuser1. You don't always have to use the full name. As long as you know the first portion of it or a part of it, you can go and find anything that fits that criteria, anything that starts with test in this example. So I have testuser1, testuser2, and a test group. So you can use a portion of the object name to find it. I think that pretty much covers this activity. So I'm going to go ahead and end the video here. As always, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them for me below, and I'll try to reply in a timely fashion.